I'm in picturesque Kentucky and I've just signed the 9 millionth barrel at American Spirits giant Sazerac's sprawling Buffalo Trace Distillery in Louisville. The distillery is teeming with visitors and shoppers, ensconced with 200 years of a storied past, surrounded by wooden casks and charred oak barrels, warehouses that have seen decades of aging and now blending heritage with modernity to connect with younger consumers in newer markets. Sazerac of bourbons and barrels with brands such as Benchmark, Buffalo Trace, Sazerac Rye and Weller is betting on New India's appetite for premium spirits, cocktail culture and younger experimentative consumers. But what will it take for the bourbon whiskey maker to make the cut in a country that swears by its Scotch? Add to that an intensely competitive and regulatory challenging market. Hear it from Diego Bianchi, Vice President, Global Hubs, straight from Louisville, the headquarters of Sazerac, one of the world's largest privately held spirits companies, and the oldest operating distillery in the US since year 1775. Also, one of the most awarded in the world. In India, he insists, Sazerac is not telling people to stop drinking Scotch. Rather, the bourbon maker is doubling down on distribution, investing heavily in consumer education, and connecting with influencers and bartenders to tell its story and bring in new consumers. It's Monday, December 8th. I'm Ratna Bhushan from the Economic Times, your host for the day, and you're tuned in to the Corner Office Conversation. Good morning, Diego. Thank you for joining me on the morning brief. It's such a delight to have you speak with us straight from the headquarters of, what carries 2 centuries of history and legacy.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So, Diego, you're building bourbon in a country that swears by its Scotch. If I ask you 4 key hooks on which you're building Sazerac, what would they be?
Sure. I think, our focus in the coming years is going to be all about building the bourbon category and really driving education and ensuring our products are available and visible for consumers to discover. I think the second thing is, you know, bourbon is unique and that is held to some of the highest standards in the whiskey world with really strict US regulations. So, for example, bourbon must be aged in new charred oak barrels. There's no flavorings or colorings added. Those are just two examples of some of the regulations that govern bourbon. Three, I mean, just from my personal experience, bourbon's versatility is incredible. I think it makes it an excellent choice for both sipping neat or in crafting in cocktails. In particular, even wheated bourbon such as Weller, which offer a sweeter profile, we believe really appeals to the Indian palate. So I think that's what really makes bourbon special and versatile. So for a lot of different consumption occasions. And I think the last one that really stands out to me is, consumers aren't just looking for a drink anymore. They're really looking for a brand they can connect with and experience. And that's where I believe like the products of Buffalo Trace Distillery really stand out. We have a lot of stories to tell. We really have ways that we can connect with consumers uniquely and really share the love of bourbon and craftsmanship through our products.
Okay, interesting that you say this. You obviously do have a lot of stories to tell. But tell me, I was reading a recent interview where you said you visited India 4 times in the past 12 months alone. So, what are your key takeouts from, Indian bars? Opportunities, challenges? What have you taken away from this market?
Sure. Yeah, it's been fascinating. I've really enjoyed every trip, and I'm actually going back in 2 weeks. So I'll be there very soon. I think, first, premiumization is apparent. I think premium whiskey continues to grow, doubling over the last 5 years. Really, as a country continues to grow as well, and consumers have more disposable income. So that's something that really stands out as number one. I think number two, I visited incredible, vibrant bars and really got to experience cocktail culture firsthand. There's excellent mixologists. There's the concepts of the different outlets are really cool, inviting, and beautiful, offering different settings for different types of consumers. So that's really exciting to see. And I think the third would be maybe brand curiosity. Like I mentioned earlier, consumers are looking for brands they can connect with. So I think the history, the craftsmanship, the acclaim of Buffalo Trace Distillery and its brands, we believe will be really resonate with Indian consumers. So that's what really makes me excited about our brands and our strategy in India.
Wow, that is wholesome. But Ego, moving from brand equity to numbers, volumes or value growth in India, what are you telling your teams to prioritize?
Yeah, I think, our number one mission is to connect consumers to our brands. So that honestly means we need to do both. So for example, we have benchmark bourbon at an accessible price point that's very widely distributed across India. And we also have Weller 12, which we launched this last year that will appeal to a more seasoned drinker. I would say like we gotta really build brands across the spectrum. Those were just two examples, but really, like our focus right now is to really build for the long term. So we're gonna intentionally introduce brands that really appeal to consumers at different price points. That's the only way that we're gonna really make an impact in India in a wide scale. And then the other thing I'd say is, you know, obviously India in itself is the largest population in the world. However, that being said, there are over 20 million new consumers entering the category each year. This means that over time, there's going to be shifts in how consumers consume alcohol. And I think we need to make sure that we design for the early drinkers just as much as we design for the seasoned drinkers. So I think all of these combined, I mean, I know it's a tough task in general, but I think we're excited about the challenge and we're excited to bring our brands across the spectrum of consumers.
Which brings me to my next question. What are the other Asian markets you operate in, and where does India rank in terms of growth and, well, potential?
Yeah, I mean, we're Sazerac's quickly expanding globally. We are widely available in many Asian markets such as Japan, Korea, China, Thailand, Australia, just to name a few. We're seeing great growth in India. There's a ton more runway to go. I think, our partnership with John Distilleries also helps in really expanding our footprints. But India as a whole is central to our overall long-term plans and strategy for Sazerac. We've started with some of our core brands like Benchmark, Buffalo Trace, Weller, Sazerac Rye to really kickstart our presence there from a bourbon portfolio perspective. And we have a lot more brands that are going to be launching each year. So, we want to leverage the vast portfolio that we've built across Sazerac to really make an impact in India and continue to drive growth for many years to come.
Talking about driving growth in India, can we say that it's now a top 10 market, something that we can quantify better?
I can't go into the exact details, but it is one of the top markets that we're prioritizing to make sure that we deliver the right brand mix to drive growth in India for the long term.
Absolutely. But tell me, Diego, bourbon is niche and it's been sort of on the fringes of the Indian spirits market. And I'm sure you've been asked this question a lot of times, but I still have to ask you, how much ground have you covered in the past 1 year?
Yeah, I think, obviously I can't go into specifics in the numbers. However, we are in the early stages. I'm really excited about the traction that we've gotten, the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of the on-premise and off-premise outlets in India. We've got great response. We're seeing distribution grow month over month. And as I visited India, I'm also there to actually see the positive feedback I'm getting from the accounts and also consumers alike. So I think from that perspective, we feel really good about how progress is going. I'd say we need to take it one consumer at a time. We need to really focus on the education and bringing more trial with our products to consumers. So I think as we do that, we'll continue to build momentum. And over the course of time, I think you'll see the bourbon category grow in India.
And talking about momentum, in February, New Delhi had slashed tariffs on imported American whiskies. For bourbon, that meant a reduction from 150% to 100%. That's quite a drop, right? How much has that helped you?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it's a positive first step. honestly, we really hope that leads to more category growth for more brands to come to India. However, it's not fundamental to our long-term strategy. So really our aim regardless is to make sure that we continue to build brands in India for the long term. So I think you'll see us continue to gain traction despite of what happens with the tariffs.
Good, but I want to take forward what you just said, Diego. You talked about premiumization, tariffs, and category building. So, how important is pricing in all this mix? And are you thinking of bringing down prices maybe just a bit?
Well, price is an important factor in many consumer decisions. I think, we will for sure have price products across the pricing spectrum. And we've done this honestly across in the US successfully in other markets. We've talked a lot about bourbon, which obviously it plays a big role in India, but we also offer Fireball, a spicy sweet cinnamon shot brand. It's a number one shot brand in the US, and it's also widely available in India at an accessible price point, as an example. Over the coming months, you're going to see a lot more or a few more brands come into the mix in India and at different price points. But so I think to answer your question, it's very front of mind for us to make sure that we are offering a competitive product at the right price.
Right. But I have to ask you this now. There's so much data that talks about Indian drinkers turning younger, a lot of states bringing down the legal drinking age, a lot more consumers experimenting with cocktails, going out, dining out, etc. So, what are you doing specific to these younger consumers? Like, are you creating IPs? For example, Bacardi builds on music, Smirnoff has a fashion property. Do we see something from Sazerac soon?
Sure. Yeah, we're actively thinking about this across the portfolio. I'd say when you think about what we've done with Weller, really Weller is all about highlighting the heritage, the craftsmanship. We plan to partner with mixologists around the country. We want to do things that are going to drive brand loyalty and really connect with consumers in a deep way when it comes to a brand like Weller. There's other brands where we may do more mass marketing or nightlife partnerships, such as the like Fireball as an example. It's a nightlife brand, a shot brand. So that's going to be a bit of a different strategy where we may also partner with influencers across the country. And we are going to go brand by brand to make sure that we find the right mix of elements that will appeal to the consumers of each of those brands.
Very, very interesting that you say that. Coming back to some corporate news, Sazerac has a majority 60% stake in John Distillers. Do you have any plans to buy additional equity?
Yeah, I would say we're super excited to have a partner like John Distilleries. They play a big role in our strategy to help us really navigate the regulatory environment and also leverage the amazing relationships that they have. But I'd say that's all I can say at the moment.
Okay. And are you considering a 100% subsidiary in India maybe sometime in the future?
No, I'd say, look, I appreciate the question. I'd say our relationship with John Distilleries is productive. It allows us to really tap into the local market and really leverage their expertise and route to market capabilities. So I think our plan is to operate through them as of this point.
Right. So at one end, there's this brand connect, potential IPs, experimentation, which is great. At the other end, there are regulatory challenges. It's something which no one can wish away. It's right here to stay. You've been overseeing so many markets. How difficult is it to operate in India compared to some of the other markets you're in?
Sure. I'd say, every market is complex in its own way. We operate in a highly complex industry globally. I think, we'll play by the regulations, and it's the same playing field for the competition as well. So I think our role is just to maximize the partnerships that we have, our partnership with John Distilleries, to make sure that we do this as in the most that we navigate in the most effective way. Um, and also make sure, inevitably there's some areas that are going to be more difficult than others. But at the same time, I think if we are focused on the right things in terms of being able to build the distribution, the visibility, the trial with consumers, I think all of these things are things that we're going to work through. And I don't foresee it being a challenge in the fact that it's going to impact our business. I see it more as an opportunity for us to really learn what works and make sure that we are able to really execute in the most effective way.
But tell me, are you looking beyond bourbon in India? And if yes, by when?
Yeah, I mean, we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have Fireball live now in India, which is the number one shot brand in the USA, and I think is also widely available in India. I think we beyond bourbon, we will have some new brands launching here the next few months that we're excited about. But I think, yeah, we're constantly every year looking across our portfolio, the wide range of the 450 brands that Sazerac has. And we make sure that we bring the right brand for the right consumer at the right time for India.
Okay, so this directly connects me to my next question. Where do you see Sazerac, like, say, 5 years later in India?
Well, I'd say, we're going to continue to our goal is to continue to design for the long term. So I'd say as long as we're continued our steady growth and our overall, and we continue to educate around bourbon, as well as continue to look for opportunities to expand that portfolio, I think we're going to be in a great place in 5 years. I'm really excited about the traction we're getting with like our current portfolio and along with the John Distillery brand and portfolio. So as long as we continue to execute, we continue to design and build brands that connect with consumers, I think we'll be in a good place.
Right, and finally, moving beyond Sazerac, and you have to answer this, Diego. Tell me, is there an Indian brand you sort of look up to, a rival that you want to emulate? You feel that it's really done well and established itself in the Indian market?
No, I'd say no. I appreciate the question. I think we obviously look at the wide spectrum of competition across the different categories. I'd say one that stands out over the last couple of years has been the rise of Indie. I think they've done a really great job with their product and how they've marketed the product, and just to again successfully connect with consumers. So that's one in the Indian single malt space that has been impressive. There's others, but I think I would say, the formula is the same. I think we've got to build the right product and position it the right way that's going to connect with consumers that ultimately consumers enjoy. And I think if we do that right, we'll be in a good place with our portfolio at Sazerac.
And on that note, we'll end this conversation. I must thank you for such a wholesome conversation. We've covered a whole lot of ground, and all the very best, Ego.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Sazerac is clear it's not replacing your Scotch. Rather, it's creating a new market along with a whole lot of storytelling, drawing on heritage and blending it with youth as it jostles with much larger and well established rivals on the shelf. But can its 200-year history and heritage resonate with new young consumers and move bourbon from the fringes to the mainstream? Time will tell. For now, we're signing off and hope you enjoyed this episode. You've been listening to the Corner Office Conversation, and I'm your host, Ratna Bhushan. This episode was produced by Anirban Chaudhary. Sound designer, Amrit Reggie. You can listen to our podcast on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thank you for listening and have a nice day ahead.